What's going on, y'all? This is Intergalactic Brew once again. Um, I wanted to do another video since I'm talking about WrestleMania weekend. Um, I guess it wouldn't be WrestleMania weekend without me talking about the Hall of Fame. Now, this year's WWE Hall of Fame is pretty intriguing, and it's very ironic too that all of these names are being inducted into the Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia, because half of these superstars on this Hall of Fame inductee roster, probably with the exception of three, were in WCW. And when I mean most of the roster, or half of the roster, I should say, I'm talking about Bullet Bob Armstrong, uh, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the Road Warriors, and Abdul the Butcher. Now, as of course, Shawn Michaels and Sonny and Drew Carey, they're all WWE people. But be that as it may, I just thought that I just point that out, being that WrestleMania is going to be in Atlanta this year, and that's the birthplace of WCW, and that was just kind of a little coincidence. But anyway, I must say that this year's Hall of Fame inductee class is very deserving. I think this is probably the most deserving WWE Hall of Fame class I've seen out of all the others. Because in the past, the Hall of Famers that I've seen inducted, I kind of knew that they were eventually going to reach that pinnacle in their career. But these guys that are being inducted this year, and girls, well, I don't know if the female actually deserves it, but that's my opinion. And oh yeah, I did get all of you all's comments who commented on my video when I made my thoughts very vocal about Sonny being in the Hall of Fame this year. I got some mixed opinions on that. So some people agree with it, some people didn't, and that's good for me, because that brings me more attention. And I thank all of you that participated in that and gave your own personal thoughts about the video. So keep them coming. And hey, like I said, it's only my opinion, guys. Sometimes I really need to lighten up and grow some thick skin and realize that everybody's not gonna feel the same way that you feel about Sonny. Like I said, in no way I was trying to disrespect her. I was just speaking the truth, because it happened. I mean, she did some grimy stuff backstage, and I think that took a lot from her image in professional wrestling. If you're gonna call yourself a diva, and if you're gonna be a role model to young ladies growing up, then you should at least carry yourself, to the standard of, matching your personality outside of wrestling as so in wrestling. And unfortunately, Sonny didn't do that. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Sonny, because I've already been there, done that. We're here to talk about the WWE Hall of Fame. So let's get down to the inductees this year. First off, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, a guy who I believe is long overdue to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, a couple of my buddies that I talked to about this, some of them say that he's slightly overrated, which I don't understand. I don't know what would make them say that, but anyway, be that as it may. Hacksaw Jim Duggan to me was, one of the first real heroes in the industry. He fought for what he believed in. You know, he was the people's champion, quote unquote. I really think Hacksaw Jim Duggan was really the original people's champion because, you know, he always came out with the American flag, always talking about the USA and, you know, always trying to come out and defend the baby faces when they were in trouble and stuff. You know, he was just, basically the quote unquote good guy, And, I think he did so much for the business as opposed to, you know, giving the fans something to believe in, because, I mean, if you look at his background, he comes from a small town, Glens Falls, New York. He's a blue collar guy. The working man's wrestler. He didn't go out and try to be flamboyant or nothing like that. He was just this big, strong guy from Glens Falls, New York. That loved to fight for his country and wasn't ashamed to express it. And I think that's what really made wrestling so unique back in those times, because we look at all these superheroes on TV like Spider-Man and Superman and Batman, and we see those in the animation, but we never can really get a sense of that in real life. So I think that Hacksaw really brought that quintessential superhero image to life, with his character in the ring, and I really think that was kind of a standard bearer of how, a quintessential baby face is supposed to be. It's supposed to be for the people, fight for what's right, stand up for what he believes in, coming out, making, everything a level playing field instead of, allowing one of his fellow men to get jumped or, be taken advantage of. So, Hacksaw, he was a man's man, all around, cool guy, seems like to be a real easygoing, cool, upbeat guy outside of the ring. So, thumbs up, Hacksaw. You deserve it. Tough guy. Next inductee I want to talk about is Bullet Bob Armstrong. Now, I didn't grow up watching Bullet Bob Armstrong because that's more of my parents' generation. They pretty much grew up in that era when Bullet Bob Armstrong was hot and when he was, at the pinnacle of his career. But from what I've heard about Bullet Bob Armstrong, I heard he was probably one of the toughest guys to ever step into the ring, and he was, he just did so much as more in the wrestling community more so than actually in the ring. He was a trainer at WCW for a while, if I'm not mistaken. He helped train a lot of wrestlers at the power plant. So I think just his contributions alone in the wrestling community is what has earned him this Hall of Fame induction this Saturday night. Because if it wasn't for Bullet Bob Armstrong, you probably wouldn't have seen half of the guys that you saw back in WCW, because Bullet Bob Armstrong played a huge role in preparing those guys for what they had to experience in the ring. So Bullet Bob Armstrong, he contributed a lot to the wrestling business, and I think the WWE is giving him, in that respect, this Hall of Fame induction just for what he was able to do with, the young and upcoming wrestlers at the time. So, hey man, congrats. And then on top of that, to make it even sweeter, he's a hometown boy, straight out of Marietta, Georgia, man. So good for you, Bullet Bob. Good for you. One of Atlanta's own. That's one of Atlanta's own right there. And then of course, about his family. The Armstrong brothers. Scott, who was a part of the no, Scott wrestled in WCW. I mean, even though he was a jobber, he wrestled for many years in WCW. He wasn't on, the big shows like Monday Nitro and Thunder and even any of the pay-per-views, but he did wrestle on the minor shows like WCW Saturday Night and WCW Pro and WCW Main Event and all that other stuff. So hey, and you had Steve, who I don't think, if you remember, I'm talking to my old heads here, my old school wrestling fans. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Young Pistols, but Steve Armstrong and Tracy Smothers, they were the Young Pistols in WCW. Very underrated tag team. They held the U.S. tag team belts for a long time. Before Steve had branched off into singles competition, so yeah, that's how Steve came up. And then of course about Brad and Brian. And Brian Armstrong, I'm talking about, was the roadie with Jeff Jarrett, and then he transitioned into the road dog with Billy Gunn, aka Kip James, and Triple H, and X-Pac in D-Generation X back in the Attitude Era, who I thought was one of the more entertaining guys. I personally love the Road Dogg. He was one of my favorites back in WWE during the Attitude Era. So yeah, but that just goes to show you what kind of legacy Bullet Bob left in wrestling, with bringing his boys into the business, So without a shadow of a doubt, man, Bullet Bob definitely deserves this introduction into the Hall of Fame. So congratulations, Bullet Bob. I salute you. Let's see. Who do I want to talk about next? Oh yeah. Now this guy that I'm about to talk about now, I believe should have been in the WWE Hall of Fame maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. This dude is way overdue. And the man that I'm talking about is Abdullah the Butcher. I'm telling you, man. When I used to look at my old WCW tapes, like I have old videos of like Starrcade '91 Battle Bowl and what's that other one? Super Brawl, and it's just a whole bunch of other other old school WCW pay-per-views, like Halloween Havoc '91, the Chamber of Horrors. I don't know if y'all old school wrestling fans remember that. You probably do. But Abdul the Butcher, man, that dude was scary as hell back in his day, man. I mean, walking around, with the 3 stars on his head, and he really didn't talk that much. He just came out and was basically a hired assassin, basically to put people out of commission. I remember the rivalries that he had with Sting and Cactus Jack, and I even think he was feuding with Ron Simmons, aka Farouk, for a long time. So yeah, man, Abdul the Butcher, he was he was something else, man. And he was one of the guys that really put hardcore wrestling on the map. I remember some of the legendary cage matches he had with Cactus Jack, watching them when I was younger, when WCW, was real big in Atlanta, and it used to have most of its shows here in Atlanta and its center stage and stuff. Abdul the Butcher, used to wrestle in some of those matches and everything. And yeah, he was just a scary dude, man. But in real life, I mean, I've actually seen Abdullah before. I've never really talked to him face to face, but from what I've seen, in person, he seems to be a really cool guy. So I think Abdullah deserves this. So congratulations.